Imagine your ex dumps you for being a deadbeat with pipe dreams, then shows up 2 years later begging for a job at your company, with your name on every wall. And because the universe has a twisted sense of humor, you hire her. Not out of mercy, not out of love, out of spite and pure entertainment. Watching someone pretend they don't remember mocking your dreams is better than therapy. And cheaper. Name's Jake. I'm 32, run a startup that accidentally took off, and have the emotional range of a broken toaster. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't always like this. Once upon a time, I had dreams, optimism, and a girlfriend named Sarah who said things like, "You're so smart, but you never do anything." That was before she traded me in for a guy with a LinkedIn premium account and networking as a hobby. Now I mostly run meetings, drink too much cold brew, and try not to set things on fire. Sarah dumped me in the world's most condescending brunch spot, surrounded by fake plants and people who talk about intentionality like it's a goddamn religion. She was wearing that beige linen outfit that made her look like a neutral-toned influencer. I unfortunately was still wearing the same hoodie I'd slept in, which, in hindsight, really did sell her point about me not having my life together. She started with, "Jake, I've been thinking," which is never a great prelude, unless someone's about to say, "We should order pizza." Instead, she laid into me with that careful, therapist-approved language people use when they've already moved on emotionally but want you to feel like the problem is shared. "I just feel like we're in different places. You're stuck." Stuck? I had a plan. Technically, it just wasn't something I'd screamed from rooftops because I didn't need the chorus of doubt when it was already whispering inside my skull. But yeah, I'd been coding in secret on a side project. A big one. Something that would eventually morph into a company, if I didn't screw it up. I wasn't ready to show it to anyone yet, especially not her. She didn't want potential. She wanted progress. She wanted someone like Mike. Mike, the human version of a Patagonia vest. He managed some mid-tier consultancy firm and looked like he got 8 hours of sleep even in crisis. Sarah met him at one of those god-awful young professional mixers. She always dragged me to and introduced him as the guy who gave a talk on leadership psychology. Barf. Anyway, the breakup ended with her telling me I had a lot of potential, like I was a dilapidated house someone should flip. She hoped I'd find my path. I hoped she'd step in something wet with socks on. We went our separate ways. For a while I spiraled. Nothing dramatic. No shaving my head or crying in public. Just a solid 2 weeks of pizza boxes, doom scrolling, and coding like I was trying to escape reality through sheer typing. I didn't talk to anyone except the barista at the place down the block who started putting 2 espresso shots in my coffee without asking. Probably out of pity. I respected that. Took a month to crawl out of the funk and admit that maybe Sarah did me a favor. Not because she was right, she wasn't, but because being left behind lights a very specific kind of fire under your ass. I started treating my little side project like a job. Gave it a name. Drew up mock-ups. Learned just enough business jargon to be dangerous. All while still working my day job as a QA analyst for a company that thought Agile was a personality trait. At that point, I didn't tell anyone about the project. Not my friends, not my parents, and definitely not Sarah. It wasn't revenge I was aiming for, it was vindication. I wanted to walk into some big event one day, see her across the room, and have her realize I was the name behind the company everyone wouldn't shut up about. Juvenile? Absolutely. But you try getting dumped for not being ambitious enough and see how mature you feel. Anyway, I finally pulled the trigger. I quit my job with a 3-word resignation email. "Thanks. I'm out." Then I went full gremlin mode, living off savings, protein bars, and caffeine while I built the first working version of my product. It was a B2B SaaS platform, which sounds like corporate babble until you realize companies would throw stupid amounts of money at anything that claimed to streamline operations and reduce churn. I launched a scrappy beta version on Product Hunt with 0 expectations. I didn't have investors. I didn't even have a business model. I just wanted validation. Or maybe just to not fail in a very public, very humiliating way. But then something weird happened. It got traction. Real traction. Not a unicorn moment. But enough people signed up that I had to stop and stare at the screen for a good 5 minutes, wondering if it was a glitch. The kind of users who didn't just kick the tires, they actually paid. Not much, but enough to prove it worked. I kept improving it. Rolling out updates. Responding to user feedback like a caffeinated chatbot. Slowly, I added features. Hired a freelance dev. Then another. Built out support documentation. Cleaned up the UI. Months passed. The numbers kept growing. And through all of this, I never reached out to Sarah. Never sent her a smug, told you so. because the best part wasn't rubbing it in. It was knowing, quietly, that she'd been wrong about me, and that one day she'd find out the hard way. I told myself I was over it, that it wasn't about her anymore, that I was doing this for me. But when I saw a photo of her and Mike at some bullshit vineyard retreat, grinning like they'd cured cancer, I opened a new terminal window and coded for 6 straight hours out of pure spite. That's the part no one tells you about motivation. It's not always pure. Sometimes it's petty. Sometimes it's a giant middle finger in the form of a login screen. By the time I started getting offers from investors, I had a team of 5, a revenue stream, and no social life. Which was fine. Friends flake. Petty rage doesn't. And the best part? Not one person, not even Sarah, had a clue what was coming next. Momentum is a hell of a drug. Especially when you've spent years with people subtly implying you're wasting your potential, like you're a broken vending machine that won't dispense success. Once the user base hit 5 digits and investors started sniffing around, I stopped second-guessing myself and started acting like I belonged in the room. Which is hilarious because I absolutely did not. I was winging every meeting like a guy trying to BS his way through a group project he forgot existed. My pitch deck looked like it had been made during a caffeine seizure, and I once described our product as kind of like Slack if it had a baby with Asana and then abandoned that baby to be raised by Notion. Somehow that got laughs. And money. By some miracle, or maybe because rich people love buzzwords more than children, I secured funding. Not millions, but enough to rent a real office, hire a small team, and stop taking meetings from my bed. Progress. The office was in a shared co-working space downtown, wedged between a company that sold organic toothpaste subscriptions and a crypto startup run by a guy who looked like he sold knockoff Rolexes on the side. We painted one wall black, slapped a logo decal on it, and suddenly we were a company. People wore lanyards. There was cold brew on tap. It felt disgusting and amazing at the same time. I hired smart people better than me, developers who didn't flinch at obscure bugs, ops folks who actually enjoyed spreadsheets, a designer who made everything look like it belonged in a keynote presentation. I even hired a copywriter who insisted on using phrases like synergistic touchpoints until I threatened to replace her with a ChatGPT prompt. Then came the TED-style talk. I didn't ask for it. Some local Tech Futures event reached out, said they wanted new voices, and apparently mine qualified because of our sudden traction. I said yes, because I'm a moron who thought, how hard could it be to talk for 15 minutes in front of 500 people? It was hell. I sweated through 2 shirts before I even hit the stage. But then something strange happened. I started talking, and people listened. Not out of obligation, not out of politeness, but because they were genuinely interested. I cracked a few jokes, dropped a few stats, threw in a sarcastic jab at corporate doublespeak, and somehow ended up getting a standing ovation. The talk went semi-viral. Some tech blog picked it up. Then it hit LinkedIn. Then people started emailing me with things like, your story really inspired me. Which is hilarious considering I spent half of it admitting I built the company out of bitterness and boredom. Our user base doubled, then tripled. Then I had to bring in an HR person just to make sure we didn't implode under the weight of our own success. We moved into a real office. Glass walls. Exposed ceilings. That expensive-ass fake grass wall that startups love because it screams we care about wellness, even though everyone's running on caffeine and anxiety. And yet, in the middle of all that momentum, guess who kept popping into my head like a shitty pop-up ad? Sarah. Because here's the thing. She wasn't wrong. Not entirely. I had been drifting, lost in my own head, tinkering instead of executing. And yeah, I hated her for saying it, but I also hated how close she'd been to the truth. It's like when someone punches you in the ego and your brain keeps replaying it like a greatest hits album from hell. I'd see her face in my head every time we hit a milestone. Like some imaginary peanut gallery going, wow, look who finally did something. Which honestly made me work harder. Rage-fueled progress isn't healthy, but it's productive as hell. Still, I never reached out. Never liked any of her posts. Never sent a single hope you're well. I stayed off her radar and she stayed off mine until she didn't. It started with a message from a recruiter we worked with. Totally casual. Hey, a woman named Sarah applied for the admin assistant role. Thought I recognized the name from your background check doc. Same person. I stared at the screen like it had personally insulted me. No last name. No photo. Just Sarah. But the recruiter had access to my employment history, and that meant one thing: she'd seen the name, knew the connection, and was asking for confirmation in the most corporate "hey lol just checking" tone possible. My first instinct was to laugh. The second was to forward it to my co-founder with the subject line, "You're not gonna believe this shit." She confirmed it. Same Sarah. The one who called me aimless. The one who left for Mike. The one who said she needed someone who took life seriously. Apparently, Mike took life so seriously that he moved to Dubai for a job and broke up with her over a voice note. Classy. I didn't reply to the recruiter right away. I sat with it, rolled it around in my head like a bitter candy that won't dissolve. Because this wasn't just irony, it was poetic savagery served cold. She needed a job. And not just any job. She was applying for an assistant position. At my company, the universe doesn't always give you closure. Sometimes it gives you a job application with your ex's name on it and lets you decide whether you're the bigger person or the petty bastard you always feared you were. So I did what any reasonable CEO with unresolved ex-trauma would do. I scheduled her interview. Personally, I told HR to block off a 2 p.m. slot for a new candidate screen. I didn't tell them who it was. I didn't want the pregame gossip, the moralizing, the maybe it's not a good idea whisper sessions. I wanted the raw experience of seeing her walk through those glass doors and realize the logo on the wall had my name buried in it. I wasn't going to gloat. That's not my style. I was just going to exist in the room. Let the facts do the talking. If she wanted to pretend we were strangers, fine. I could play that game too. When the moment came, I waited in the conference room. Clean shirt, calm face, my usual coffee mug that says World's Okayest CEO. A little sweat, but manageable. I kept the chair turned slightly, like I didn't care who was walking in. It was all very dramatic in a slow burn kind of way. Then the door opened. There she was. Sarah. In person. Not through a filtered Instagram post or some smiling brunch photo. Just real, tired looking, and visibly surprised. She hit it fast, but not fast enough. Her eyes did the blink twitch thing people do when their brain says, "Oh, fuck." And their face hasn't caught up. "Jake," she said, voice tight. "Sarah," I replied, sipping my coffee like I hadn't just mentally high-fived every version of myself from the past 5 years. She sat down without being invited, which was exactly on brand. We stared at each other for a beat. Then she opened the manila folder she'd brought like we were doing some 2007-era job interview. No laptop, no tablet, just paper and hopeful desperation. "So," she started, trying to look composed. "I didn't realize you were the founder." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm shocked." She gave a tight smile. The kind people wear when they want to crawl out of their own skin but are trying to pass it off as confidence. For the record, I didn't throw the breakup in her face. I didn't quote her words back to her like some emotionally stunted villain. I just ran the interview straight, asked about her admin experience, her scheduling skills, her familiarity with the tools we used. She answered professionally, a little rehearsed, like she'd practiced the tone in the mirror and hoped I wouldn't ask anything that reminded her of the past. Halfway through, she dropped the act. "Look," she said, "I know this is weird. I didn't come here to." "You applied," I interrupted. "I didn't invite you." That shut her up. I ended the interview like any other, thanked her for her time, said we'd be in touch. Then she left, walking just a little too fast like the room was on fire. And then I hired her, not out of pity, not because I missed her, not even because she was the most qualified. She wasn't. We had 3 better candidates. I hired her because I knew what it would do to her. She'd have to show up 5 days a week and pretend I wasn't the same guy she once called not serious enough about the future. She accepted the offer the same day. I could practically hear the click of reply echo with defeat. Week 1 was awkward. Not outwardly. We didn't acknowledge each other beyond polite hellos. But there was an energy to it. Tight, forced normalcy. She wore blazers like armor and acted like she hadn't once yelled at me for eating cereal in bed. Her title? Executive assistant. Her desk? Right outside my office. Her job? Scheduling my meetings, fielding my emails, coordinating logistics for the same team that now built the company she never believed I could start. We kept it professional. Sort of. Every now and then, someone would mention my TED Talk in a meeting and her jaw would twitch. She tried to stay neutral, but I caught the subtle tells. The way she looked down when people praised our growth. The forced smile when someone said, "Jake's the reason this company even exists." Once, someone brought up that viral tweet thread I'd written about bootstrapping versus VC funding, and she muttered, "Can't believe people think that counts as thought leadership." She said it just loud enough to hear. I ignored it. Mostly. The real comedy started when she tried to pull the "we're just coworkers" act around the team. Like we'd never dated. Like she hadn't once texted me a paragraph about how I was coasting on charm and low standards. She even made a point to call me Mr. Langston in front of new hires. Full professional mode. It was almost cute in a delusional sort of way. Mike came up once. Someone mentioned a trip to Dubai and she went still. I caught the flicker. It was quick, but there. She never talked about him, though. Not once. Just like she never talked about the past. Like if she stayed busy enough, no one would notice that she used to be on the other side of the story. And the best part? I didn't have to say a damn thing. Every morning she walked into that office. She lived the irony. She fetched coffee for the guy she used to say wasn't going anywhere. She took notes during meetings where people praised my vision. She booked flights and handled logistics for a product she once mocked as another one of your little ideas. No revenge plan could have topped this. Nothing I could have said would have hit harder than the silence of just letting her be here. Watching, remembering, pretending. I didn't need her to suffer. I just needed her to see. And oh boy, she saw. About 3 weeks into Sarah's employment, the dynamic started to shift in ways even I hadn't anticipated. She wasn't just adjusting to her role. She was bending herself into corporate pretzel shapes to pretend the entire history between us didn't exist. And everyone around us? Clueless. They just thought she was super respectful. Which is apparently how some people interpret dead-eyed silence and brittle smiles. Meanwhile, I kept playing the role of the benevolent CEO. Calm, polite, composed. Never so much as a raised eyebrow when she slipped into meetings late or accidentally booked me for a 7 a.m. call with an investor in London when I'd explicitly said no calls before coffee. Was it sabotage or just incompetence? Hard to tell. She was either rusty or bitter. Possibly both. But the real shift happened when we onboarded a batch of new hires. One of them, an annoyingly sharp junior product manager, asked during orientation, "Hey, how'd you start this company anyway?" Before I could answer, another dev chimed in, "Yeah, I saw that TED Talk. You said it started as revenge coding or something?" That got a laugh from the room. I gave the usual line about how pain is a hell of a motivator, and everyone chuckled. Everyone except Sarah, who was standing off to the side, tablet in hand, pretending to scroll through something while her face tried not to twitch. After the session, she cornered me in the hallway. "You enjoy this?" she said, voice low. "Which part?" I asked, sipping my overpriced nitrogen cold brew. "This little power trip," she said. "You think making me work here makes you look strong?" I shrugged. "You applied. I'm just giving you the opportunity you said I'd never create." She didn't respond, just stared, like she was searching for some version of me she could still hold in contempt. But I'd burned that version down with every line of code and every investor call. Later that week, she made a show of taking initiative, started color-coding my calendar, set up automated workflows for scheduling, tried to act indispensable. She even suggested we restructure the admin processes to improve efficiency, which sounded suspiciously like she was auditioning for a promotion she'd never get. I didn't stop her. Let her organize everything to death. Because here's the thing, she was good at the job. Maybe not brilliant, but methodical and obsessed with control in that very specific ex-girlfriend way that now benefited the org chart. But the distance between us kept eroding, especially when people started treating me like a founder celebrity. We weren't big enough for paparazzi or anything, but in the tech echo chamber, I was suddenly one to watch. Industry podcasts, panel invites, features in those top 30 under 35 lists written by unpaid interns. And every time someone posted about me online, I knew she saw it, because sometimes I'd hear her sigh when the notification popped up on the company Slack. Then one day, I walked past her desk and saw her screen open to a half-written cover letter. Different company, different logo, same desperate tone. She alt-tabbed fast, but I caught it. So, she was looking, couldn't take it anymore. Or maybe Mike had texted back from Dubai with a new offer. Either way, the exit signs were glowing in her eyes. I didn't say a word. A week later, I announced in a leadership meeting that we were hiring a new operations manager to help streamline workflows. Sarah sat in the back of the room, jaw clenched so hard I thought her molars might crack. 2 days later, she requested a one-on-one. I knew it was coming. The big conversation. The, "I think I'm ready for more responsibility" pitch. She came in prepared, blazer, notepad, the whole lean-in energy she used to mock when other women did it. "I've been here for almost 2 months, she began, "and I feel like I've proven my value." "You've been very organized," I said, nodding like a smug HR bot. I'd like to be considered for growth opportunities, she continued. Maybe ops associate. Something more strategic. It took everything in me not to laugh. Not because she wasn't capable, but because she still didn't get it. This wasn't a career path. It was purgatory. And the only promotion she was getting was from coffee fetcher to slightly less visible ghost of my past. We're looking for someone with a different background, I said, smoothly. But I appreciate the initiative. That was it. Short, clean, no emotion. And in that moment, she realized this wasn't just a job. It was a consequence of underestimating me, of betting on the wrong horse, of assuming that charm without a resume meant failure. She left the room without arguing, just nodded and walked out. I watched her go, wondering if she'd ever admit to herself what this whole charade had become. A week later, someone in the company group chat posted a side-by-side of our old beta product and the current dashboard. Captioned it, "From garage to greatness." A few people dropped clapping gifs and fire emojis. One dev wrote, "Can't believe how far we've come, Jake." Sarah liked the message. Didn't comment. Didn't DM. Just liked it. And I realized then she'd finally given up. Not just on the job, but on pretending. On holding on to whatever superiority she thought she still had. That's when I knew I'd won. Not by becoming rich or important, but by turning her "you'll never amount to anything" into a daily calendar reminder she had to color code and send me every morning. Sarah gave her 2-week notice on a Monday, slipped under my office door like some kind of awkward peace treaty. No in-person confrontation, no tears, just a single printed page that started with "Dear Jake" and ended with "Best regards." Not even a signature, just a blank white space where her name should have been. Like she didn't want to give me the satisfaction of seeing it one more time. I didn't frame it. I'm not a psycho, but I did keep it in the top drawer of my desk for about a week. Every time someone asked why the assistant role was open again, I just said she found something more aligned with her goals. Technically not a lie. She didn't throw a goodbye party. No Slack farewell message. No cupcakes in the break room. Just packed up her shit on a Thursday evening and walked out without saying goodbye to anyone except our office manager, who looked confused but too polite to ask questions. I watched her leave through the glass wall. No dramatic glances. No last words. Just a bag over one shoulder and a face like she was trying not to cry or scream or both. I should have felt triumphant, but I didn't. It wasn't catharsis. It wasn't some clean, full-circle moment where everything fell into place. It just felt done. Like a weird chapter in a book you're glad is over, even if it didn't have a satisfying ending. The truth is, I didn't hate her anymore. Not really. Maybe for a while I did. Maybe for a while I wanted to be the living reminder of her biggest mistake. But by the time she left, I realized something. She was never the villain. She was just the first person to call my bullshit out loud. And yeah, it hurt. And yeah, maybe she said it like she was better than me. But she wasn't wrong. I was drifting back then. I was full of excuses and half-starts and clever ideas that went nowhere. The difference is I did something about it. She didn't. Mike dumped her. Dubai didn't work out. Whatever dream she'd pivoted to didn't pan out. And she ended up back here. At the company she never believed would exist. Working for the guy she thought would always be full of potential. It's funny how life works. Everyone loves a comeback story, but no one talks about the ones who don't come back. The ones who peak early. The ones who make the wrong bet and never quite recover. Sarah didn't crash and burn. She didn't spiral or turn bitter. She just faded. Became one of those people who updates their LinkedIn every 6 months hoping for a fresh start. Whose Instagram slowly fills with motivational quotes and pictures of food, with captions like, "New beginnings." I checked, once. Then closed the tab and never looked again. Meanwhile, the company kept growing. We hired a new EA. Someone with no history, no baggage, and no passive-aggressive calendar invites. I finally took a vacation that didn't involve Wi-Fi and guilt. I spoke at another tech conference, wore a suit for the first time since my cousin's wedding, and didn't sweat through it. Progress. Every once in a while, someone from the old friend group will ask, "Hey, whatever happened to Sarah?" And I'll just say, "No idea," which is mostly true. I don't think she tells anyone about working here. It's not exactly a brag-worthy stint when the founder is your ex-boyfriend and your entire job was scheduling his dentist appointments and expense reports. I doubt she lists it on her resume. I doubt she even says my name out loud. And that's fine. Because the real payoff wasn't making her regret leaving me. It was realizing I didn't need her to. I didn't need to rub it in. Didn't need to prove anything anymore. The company is real. The work is meaningful. The people I lead actually care. And I wake up every morning without that dull ache of not being enough. That, more than anything, is the win. The world didn't hand me revenge on a silver platter. It handed me a choice. Build or break. And I built. Out of spite, out of ego, out of desperation, but I built something. She was part of the reason. But not the whole reason. There's no moral to this story. No inspirational takeaway about love and growth. It's not a TED Talk. It's just what happened. I got dumped. I got mad. I built a company. She came back. I didn't flinch. And now I run a business. Drink less coffee. Sleep better. And every once in a while, I pass someone in the lobby who's new and bright-eyed and ask them, "Why'd you join us?" They always say something like, "Heard the founder's story. Wanted to be part of something real." And I think, yeah, me too. Sometimes, when I stay late at the office and the place is dead quiet, I'll pass her old desk. Still has the faint outline from her monitor base on the wood. It's just an empty surface now, clean, forgettable, like she was never there. Funny thing is, I don't think about her much anymore. But I do think about how close I came to proving her right. The universe didn't punish her. It just promoted me. And yeah, the coffee still sucks. But the view's pretty damn good.